It's early, it's cold, it's miserable, it's February, but the question is it worth going to the Carboot? There's only one way to find out.
Game pickups! Building the games room! Road trips! Live game hunting!
Hello again folks and welcome back to a very special episode, as this time, for the first time in 2023, we'll be heading to our local car boots and answering the question, is it worth going to the car boots in February? Normally I don't start going back to the car boots till late March, early April, around Easter normally, so I'll be interested to see if we can still score at the car boots in February. Just before we head off to the car boot, I want to remind you folks, if you enjoy this video, please hit that like button and please subscribe. Because I put new videos out every Saturday night at 5, as well as bonus content throughout the week, and I really want you folks along for the ride. Now, it may be early, it may be February, but let's hit the car boot. Here we are then, it is 8 AM on a Sunday morning, it is grey, it is cold, but we are going to answer the question, is it worth going to the car boot in February? It's definitely off season, but it does seem like a lot of people are here already. Somebody was so keen, it seemed like they camped out the night before. Let's get into this car boot. Very first stand and quite interesting find here, one of these Lost World collector's coins. Now, I think these came from Tetley T or PG Tips back in the day. If you ever collected them in the mid-90s, let me know in the comments down below. A couple of various retro figures here, nothing I kind of recognised or wanted for the collection, but pretty cool to see some stuff straight off the bat. Here's something you don't see as much these days, it seems photo albums, and this was a very, very tasteful photo album. It was kind of tempted to pick this up to keep some of my treasured memories in, but I did decide to pass it up. On the next store, we did finally find some of the first games today. Sadly, these were kind of some very basic PS2 games. Nothing of much value here, some platinum games, some bits like that. Sadly, these are the wrong platinum games. But yeah, at least we were seeing some video games. Like, it seemed pretty busy, but so far I hadn't found any video games. These were the first ones of the day. Sadly, nothing to write home about. A couple of Star Wars novels here. Obviously, these are all non-canon now due to the Disney takeover of the Star Wars universe. But at least we were finding some video games, and hopefully these will be the first of many more. Here is a good tip for everyone watching. Now is the best time of the year to pick up Christmas jumpers. So this Christmas jumper was marked at £2. I actually managed to haggle them down to just £1. This is a brand new and sealed numbskull Christmas jumper for just £1. You could sell this for about 10-15 times that near Christmas. I remember the times when the car boot was absolutely flooded with Rock Band and Guitar Hero stuff. I think we are seeing it less and less, and this stuff is getting more and more expensive and better to trade in at CX. Sadly, this one was missing one of the extension bits that goes on here so you can plug it into the Xbox 360, but it was pretty cool to see. But let me know, are you seeing less and less Rock Band and Guitar Hero stuff near you? If you did not know, this year I'm going for a complete PlayStation 1 Platinum collection, and this is one of the games that is missing from my collection. The Platinum version of Rayman, but I was also missing Rayman 2. Now, I think he had these for £5 each, which I thought was a little bit expensive for a car boot, and I thought I could haggle him down, especially as this one had the wrong back to the game. So on the front it says Rayman 2, on the back it says the next Tetris. Now this guy didn't really seem like haggling, and I cannot believe what happened next. We've just come back to the game briefly, so I can just explain what happened with that PlayStation 1 game. So you notice it had the incorrect backing to the game, and I mentioned this to the seller, and what he did was rip the front of the game, rip the plastic shelf out, and then proceed to rip the back card out of the box, rip it into pieces, smash the game back together, and say, there, good as new. Obviously, I decided to leave it behind. I think that guy had some severe anger issues, but onwards and upwards. Back to the car boot. Okay, let's try and get back on track after that absolutely shocking behaviour with that poor PlayStation game. We have these Animal Crossing Friends dolls. I've never seen these before. This might be a really good price for these. I'm not the biggest fan or have the biggest knowledge of Animal Crossing, but I thought these were pretty cool as a nice little collectible. Carrying on through the car boot, here we had an absolute table full of Hot Wheels. I think these were like 2 or 3 for a £5, which is a pretty good deal. Loads of Pokemon cards. Again, these are all very cool things if you know what you're looking for. On this next store, they had a couple of novelty mugs. I was very tempted by this Hulk mug, just because it looked super cool when you were holding it. You look like the Hulk and you can smash stuff. Also, this Spider-Man one. I have picked up quite a few novelty mugs recently. I kind of need to lay off these, as I think I keep filling the shelves in the games room with these, and space is sadly running out. I'm always on the lookout for comics when I go to the Carboot, and this Batman Rebirth one looked pretty cool from the outlook, but I think it was just a very short, like, kind of bonus comic or something. It was a little bit bent and damaged as well, so I did leave that behind. But then this caught my eye, like, the story of Grand Theft Auto Jacked. I think people forget, like, when the original Grand Theft Auto and, like, Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, there was so much controversy about these games. They're just so much part of mainstream media now, but back in the day, there was so much offence caused. On this next store, I finally found one of my favourite video game movies of all time. I've been looking to add to the collection, Silent Hill, and I think this sells in CX for £2.50, so managing to pick that up for 50p at Carboot is a much better deal. Speaking of DVDs, on the very next stall I hit the absolute motherload of DVD box sets. If you did not know, a lot of these DVD box sets can trade in for decent money at CX. And trust me, this bag was absolutely stacked. You can see Stingray DVD here, the complete season. I think this one trades in for £5 or £6. I'm going to put all the prices up at the end. Thunderbirds, again, £5 or £6 trade-in. Just going through these. Some of these I'm going to add to the collection. Some of these I'm going to take into CX for trade-in credit. This is the thing, with some of these DVD box sets, if you find the right ones, you can get some really good trade-in credit at CX. So I kept digging through this bag, and I found like a lot of these kind of weird 60s. I think there's some of them are Jerry Anderson, some of them are other ones, but again, these are ones all trade in for £5 or £6. Now with this one, I did have to take quite a bit of a gamble. Like, I had a feeling these would trade in well, but I couldn't check the CX app because the lady was essentially standing right over me. But yeah, a lot of very good box sets here, and I thought I did pretty well. But trust me, when we get to the end of the Carboot, we take it back to the games room, I will tell you how much these trade in for. As I said, I'm keeping some of these box sets for the collection and trading some in, but trust me, this made the Carboot worthwhile. Bear in mind, I paid £12 for a bundle of DVDs. Here is a little sneak peek then. This one DVD box set trades in for £17. Bear in mind, I bought a huge bundle for £12. I'm always on the lookout for cool gaming t-shirts when I head to the Carboot. When I saw this one hanging on the side of a van, I knew I needed this one. I think I picked it up for £2 or £3, but this t-shirt is a thing of absolute beauty. Heading on to the next store, I did manage to find some games and some Blu-rays. I've got this on DVD. I would have picked it up on Blu-ray, but I don't know if it's quite obvious here. It was a little bit kind of crinkly and maybe water damaged. And yeah, I did decide to pass it up. They did have some HD DVDs here, like the classics like Dante's Peak, which again I was tempted to pick up, but some of these were quite damaged. I don't know if you can tell these Xbox 360 games. These were also sadly very, very sun damaged. This next store had absolutely loads of modern Star Wars merchandise, and it kind of blows my mind how cheap this stuff is now. I think like anything other than original Star Wars stuff is just so cheap because they just so mass produced it, like especially with the new films, because I don't think they've kind of got the same kind of following as some of the older films. I just think a lot of this stock is just going to sit and just never go up in value, which is a real shame. They've kind of really demonetized Star Wars, but I digress. On to the next store, I did find this copy of For Honor for the Xbox One. They were playing some reggae music very loudly, so I've had to mute this bit, but I think they asked for £3 for this, and it's a lot cheaper in CX. PSPs can only be found at the Carboot pretty cheap, and he's actually trading at CX pretty well. But this one did feel oddly light. It had no charge, so I couldn't test it, so I did leave it behind. Basically, after this footage cut, I found out the reason I couldn't test it is because it didn't have a battery at all, so I'm very glad I passed on this one. The same store also had some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles figures. Sadly, these were more recent ones, so I did decide to pass on these, as they were a little bit expensive in my eyes. How much are your turtles here?
£3 each. I somebody this morning asked me for one had nunchuckers.
Yeah.
They're £3 each. He went, yeah, I'll give you £5, so that's worth £5.
Here's something you don't see very often, a Switch controller. This was one of the ones you have to plug into the console. If this had been wireless, I'd have been quite tempted. It also looked like somebody had bitten a chunk out of one of the thumbsticks for some bizarre reason. Definitely after more of a pro controller for the Switch, definitely not after a Razer. There were these Pokemon cards here as well. These were £5 each, and excuse my ignorance, was there anything I'm missing at why these were each £5? The next store had free Wii consoles. That's right, free Wii consoles. A couple of kind of like shovelware style games. Don't get me wrong, I am quite a fan of these fishing style games, and some of these weirder Wii games can trade in for some decent credit in CX. Sadly, none of these ones did. I've been asking like 20 quid on the Wii's, which isn't too bad, but I think you could probably get them cheaper off Facebook Marketplace. It was just getting really hard to find video games today. I'd scored pretty well with those DVDs earlier. There was a lot of modern Star Wars stuff. As big a fan of Star Wars as I am, I'm not so much into the modern figures just because I think they're so massively produced. A lot of Lego on this store, a nice little pile here of PlayStation 3 games, some decent titles, but I unfortunately did have all of these in the collection. There really wasn't anything here worth trading in to CX, unfortunately, so I did pass on. This next stall was a reseller. I don't really have any of a problem with resellers. I do think sometimes they do charge a little bit higher, but you can find some cool stuff here, such as Sonic Generations, possibly one of my favourite Sonic games of all time. I just have the kind of feel of the more kind of retro Sonic and then the kind of more 3D Dreamcast style Sonic. Copy of Mario Kart DS, unfortunately couldn't get that cheap enough to trade it in CX. That trades in pretty decently. Some interesting games now. I don't think I've seen Quake 3 for a long while for the PlayStation 2. I kind of forget that game was even released for the PlayStation 2. They had quite a nice selection of more modern PlayStation 4 and Xbox One games, and I do want to go through some of these like Skylanders and Disney Infinity figures, as I'm very, very close to having the complete Disney Infinity set for the both Marvel and Star Wars characters. I think there's like 4 or 5 I'm missing. I don't really go for the kind of Disney figures as such. I just really go for the Star Wars and the Marvel ones. I was quite tempted by this Tron one I do pull out in a little while, because I think that was a good film. I think that's one of the better Disney films. I'm not really the biggest kind of animated Disney fan. I think he was asking £3 for these. I did pass it up, as the kind of thing I do see quite often in the charity shop. This is a game that's definitely on my radar, American Fugitive, but I'll probably pick this one up on the Nintendo Switch, just because I like having the option to be able to play it portably on the go. But yeah, it's a really cool looking game, and it's really cool it has like the download on the disc, which is kind of weird these days and a good thing to see. As I said, unfortunately today it was slim pickings on the video games. I did find this Buzz game. I wasn't sure if this is the one that trades in for decent money, but that is unfortunately Buzz, brain of the world. But if you see that game, pick it up. You can only pick up these Buzz games super cheap. They are quite a fun game, especially if you get a couple of mates, but that one definitely commands a decent trade-in at CX. One of the main things to do if you are going to be trading in games to CX is keep an eye on the value of games. I'm sure Battle Stations Midway used to trade in for £5 or £6. It is an absolutely fantastic game. Sadly now I think it trades in for about £1.20, but it just goes to show you need to keep an eye on these Xbox 360 games, as at the moment the prices are absolutely all over the place. I know this might be an unpopular opinion, but I think some aspects of the newer Turtles films are actually pretty good. Not so much the design of the Turtles, but definitely the design of Rocksteady was absolutely fantastic. And casting WWE wrestler Sheamus to play him was an absolute genius move, so I definitely wanted to pick up this figure for £1. We were coming to the end of this first Carboot of the day. Yes, this is the first of 2 Carboots. Here's something you don't see every day. Alcohol-free beer, the worst kind of beer, at a Carboot at just 50p a can, I guess, if you're thirsty first thing in the morning. And I'm just going to end this first Carboot here with this absolute stack of M&M's merchandise. I don't think I've ever been to a Carboot and not seen something M&M's based. If there's an M&M collector out there, please let me know in the comments. I want to find that one person who collects these. Here we are then at the second and final Carboot of the day. Once again, this one was at a park and ride owned by the council. Here's the thing though, because it is a hard surface, at least it does keep dry, but still, I would not buy a PlayStation 2 console that sat on the floor in January for however many hours. I just can't imagine this not being damaged by like sitting on a wet concrete floor for 5 or 6 hours. It looked in pretty good condition, but I have an unwritten rule: no electronics from the Carboot. Now, unfortunately, I can't really judge this Carboot because we got there fairly late in the day. I think it'd taken us a lot longer than we expected to get around the first Carboot, and by this point, a lot of people had packed up. There was a few games still knocking around. Mirror's Edge, absolutely fantastic game for the Xbox 360. Sadly, not really worth anything trading in-wise, and I already have it in the collection, but at least we were seeing some video games. I managed to spot this game out of the corner of my eyes. You can see the kind of green Xbox, and it's Halo, so... But that's the thing, I'm getting like eagle-eyed when it comes to Xbox One games. I can see that like trademark green from so far away, even if it is not really walking over there when it's a FIFA game, unfortunately. So sadly, by this point, a lot of people were packing up. I was just going through the last few stores. There's a couple of games here, kind of this weird edition of Halo 3. I don't know if this is from the collector's edition, that's why it's in the black case, or somebody just changed it. The FIFA on the Xbox 360 used to trade in for a reasonable amount is now pretty much worthless, and another Gran Turismo I already have in the collection. But the thing was, I wanted to answer the question today, was it worth going to the car boots in February? And when you can get items like these incredible Sonic slippers, which absolutely guttingly were not in my size, I think it is still worth going to the car boots in February. They might not be as busy as they're going to be in the summer, but that can be to your advantage. If there is less people there, it just means you have more chance to find those amazing items. And I think we did pretty well today. But let's go back to the games room and I'll take you through those pickups. Here we are then, back in the games room, and we had a question to answer today at the car boot. Is it worth going to the car boot in February? And I think it is a resounding yes. We may not have found very many video games, but we found a veritable stack of DVDs that we can take and trade into CX for even more video games. So let's get into those pickups. Here is our first pickup then. It's a Rocksteady figure from the more recent Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles films. I just think Seamus's portrayal of his character is absolutely incredible, and I definitely wanted to add this figure to my collection for just £1. Next up we have this book, Jax, the unofficial story of Grand Theft Auto, and I think a lot of people forget when Grand Theft Auto first launched, it caused an absolute storm of controversy. It'd be really interesting to go and read through this book and just relive just the crazy, crazy story of what is today one of the video game world's biggest franchises. Now is the time of the year when it is cheapest to pick up Christmas jumpers, and trust me, now is the time to pick these up. Whether you enjoy wearing these in the festive period or trying to resell these around Christmas, if you buy them cheap and sit them until Christmas, you can make a decent profit on this. I got this brand new Numbskull Rocky jumper for just £1 at the car boot. I have no idea how much this could sell for around Christmas. I'll be wearing it as I'm a massive fan of Rocky, and I do love a good Christmas sweater. Now, I didn't film myself picking up this Red Dwarf anniversary box set. It was actually my wife who picked this up for just 50p from a house clearance stall. And I can't believe this trades in to CX for £9 in voucher. She picked this up for 50p. She's going to keep it for her collection, but if you see this one cheap, I think I've seen this one before. I cannot believe this trades into CX for £9. The car boot today was very DVD heavy, and this is one of my favourite video game based films, Silent Hill. I picked this up for 50p, not the £4 it says on there. This is a really good film. I think there is a lot of bad video game based films. While this one might not be so close to the game storyline, it's still a very good movie. Here we have it then, our final pickup of this week from the car boot, and the reason why I think it was definitely worth going to the car boot in February. I picked up this absolute stack of DVD box sets for just £12. Now, some of these I'll be keeping for the collection, some of these I'll be trading in, but you will not believe the total value of this £12 pickup. When I was younger, I was a massive fan of Jerry Anderson and all of the programmes he made, so I wanted to keep some of these box sets for my collection. So first off, we have the complete Thunderbirds collection. This one would trade in for about £6 in CX, but I just love going back and reliving some of these episodes, so I wanted to keep this one for the collection. Secondly, we have a Captain Scarlet, the slightly darker cousin of Thunderbirds, but one I really enjoy nonetheless. And finally, Stingray, kind of one of the weirder of Jerry Anderson's puppet programs, but still a real fan of this one, and these are free. I definitely wanted to keep for the collection. But these are the DVDs I'll be taking to trade into CX. You can see we have Arrow Season 1 to 7, Joe 90 Collector's Edition Supercar, Terrahawk, Starfleet, and Fireball XL5. Remember, I bought these as well as those other DVDs in a bundle for just £12, and these DVDs here will trade in to CX today for in-store credit for £45. That is over triple the money we've spent, and we also get to keep some box sets for the collection. Now, I know not all DVD box sets are worth taking into CX, but it is knowing the ones that are worth it. So if you see any of these box sets cheap at the car boot, definitely pick them up. This, for me, made heading to the car boot in February, get up early on a Sunday morning and braving the cold, definitely well worth the effort. There we have it then, folks. That was the first of many car boots for 2023. And as I said, I normally don't get back into my car boots until later in the year, but if this week is anything to go by, I'll definitely be hitting up my local car boots as often as I can. But let me know, have you got back to the car boots yet in 2023, and have you managed to pick up any bargains like I did? If you enjoyed this episode, hit that like button, subscribe, and as always, keep playing the game. See you all soon.